Christy. Today I want to talk about finding the supports your loved one needs. So now you've realized and acknowledged that your loved one needs a village to help meet all of their needs. So how do you go about figuring out what those supports need to look like? How do you know where they're actually called? And where do you find them? Those are all great questions. Let's dig in. Figuring out exactly what supports your loved one requires to live their best life may seem like the hardest part of this process. But here's some encouragement. You've already got a pretty good idea of what they need. No, really, you do. Think through a typical day with them. What do they need extra assistance with that a typical adult wouldn't need help with? Those are the supports that they'll need to live apart from you. Or at least that's a good starting point for figuring out what they'll need. Are they able to wake themselves up with or without an alarm clock? Can they dress in clothing that's appropriate to the events of the day? Will the choice vary depending on the day's activities? Can they get food for themselves? Will they be able to get themselves to and from the day's activities or be able to watch for the rides or transportations independently? Do they know how to tell when it's time for bed? Do they get ready for bed independently? These are the kinds of questions to ask yourself in trying to figure out what kinds of supports your loved one will require to live as independently as possible. Now, I'm sure there are plenty of other questions. And as I've said before, you've already got a good idea of the kinds of supports your loved one requires. Now, get the answers to those questions down on paper or down electronically somehow so that you don't forget any of your answers. Keep it easily accessible so you can add to it as new thoughts or ideas arise. Now, one of the tricky parts is figuring out what these supports are actually called, figuring out what those in the know call them. I say that because there are all kinds of official names for supports that are way more politically correct or worded in a way that I personally would never think of. Admittedly, some of them I have to kind of roll my eyes at, but whatever. The key here is not to stress out over whether or not you have the correct name. Knowing how to explain what they need to a person who works in the field is what is truly important. They'll know what their organization or your area calls what you're explaining to them. They'll be able to give you the official name of the kinds of supports that your loved one will require. Again, write those down in your document or list so that you know how to refer to them as you reach out to other people and places. Now here's a warning. Sometimes different organizations have different names for the same support or service. I know, it's kind of crazy. And it's even a bit ridiculous, but it is what it is. My recommendation is to write down all the different names as well as which one is used by which organization. It'll help simplify things as you continue talking to different organizations and people if you use the terminology they use regularly. Now, the most intimidating part of the process may be figuring out where to find those supports. In many ways, it is for me. I've also discovered that it's not nearly as intimidating once I actually start. Unless you've just moved to a new area, you're probably aware of at least one organization to help you. Start there. Or do a Google search to see what's available in your area. Something like Special Needs Adults Supports and your city. You can tweak the search parameters later if you need to. Then contact one organization and explain your situation. Ask if they can help. If they can, great, you're on your way. If not, ask if they can recommend an organization that can help you with the kinds of supports you need for your loved one. Work your way down your list until you find the best fit for all the different supports your loved one requires to lead their best life. Hopefully, it'll be a relatively painful process for you and your list will quickly be full of check marks. But here's another tip. Just because an organization provides a specific support your loved one needs doesn't necessarily mean that they are the best fit. See what organizations in your area provide what supports. Maybe a mix and match of organizations fits the needs of your loved one better than a single organization. On the other hand, there's definitely something to be said for a one-stop shop and the convenience that brings. Only you can decide which option is best for you and for your loved one. Now hopefully, this has given you some things to think about and a general action plan to begin implementing. Remember, you know your loved one best. Follow your instincts, your gut, your heart, whatever you want to call it, and be persistent. Following these guidelines will help you find the best solutions for your loved one. So my question for you this week is this. What kinds of support does your loved one need? How easily available are they in your area? I'd love to hear about your experiences. You can leave me a comment below, or you can leave me a comment over on the blog. That's at www.havenofhopeforme.com. This originally posted in February of 2022. If you prefer, you can also email me at Christy, CHRISTY, at havenofhopeforme.com. I'm continuing to seek out more supports so that I can continue to say that life is good and there is never a dull moment.